signora, vuole parlare un po' con noi? Stiamo registrando una puntata radio. Questo ragazzo si chiama Jesse, è dell'Università di Toronto e ha un programma sugli studenti internazionali. Stiamo girando una puntata radio sull'Italia. 5 minuti?
Vespe truccate, anni 60, girano in centro, sfiorando i 90. Rosse di fuoco, comincia la danza, di frecce con dietro attaccata una targa. Dammi una special, l'estate che avanza, dammi una vespa e ti porto in vacanza. Ma quanto è bello andare in giro con le ali sotto i piedi. Sei una vespa special che ti toglie i problemi. A marce ingranate dalla prima alla quarta. Devo fare in fretta, devo andare a una festa. Fammi fare un giro prima sulla mia Vespa. Dammi una special, l'estate che avanza. Dammi una Vespa e ti porto in vacanza. Ma quanto è bello andare in giro con le ali sotto i piedi. Sei una Vespa special che ti toglie i problemi. Ma quanto è bello andare in giro per i colli bolognesi. Sei una Vespa special che ti toglie i problemi. La scuola non va, ma una Vespa, una donna non ho. Ho una Vespa, domenica è già, e una Vespa mi porterà. Fuori città. Fuori città. Fuori città.
CIUT 89.5, the sound of your city.
Hello, Toronto, and welcome to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. My name is Jesse McDougall, and today on the show we are celebrating the 60th episode of Tracks from Abroad. This is a show that I have started in October of 2021, and I've had an immense amount of fun. And just recently, my girlfriend printed out all the flags of the countries that we've covered, the students from these countries that we've spoken to, and she strung them up across my room. And it crisscrossed like 2 or 3 times. So we have covered over 60 countries around the world. And because of that, today we are celebrating with a potluck, international potluck at CIUT's studio. We've got lots of friends and guests all milling around the studio, getting a behind-the-scenes look. We've also got live music. It's being performed by the Argentine folk band El Sebo Folklore, and I met them through Tracks from Abroad, so it's amazing the connections and the friendships that I've developed through this radio show. And now let me tell you about what you're going to hear today, because today it's really special. We're focusing on a neighborhood of Toronto, and you may have guessed from all the Italian throughout the beginning of this show, we're focusing on Little Italy. It's a neighborhood along College Street, and it's played an incredibly important role in developing the city that we now know to be Toronto today. Generations of Italian families immigrated to this part of the city over the decades, and who better to talk about this community than Lenny Lombardi? He's the president and CEO of CHIN FM, a multicultural broadcaster making programming in over 50 languages, including Cantonese, Hindi, Spanish, Portuguese, and of course Italian. This seemed like a no-brainer to speak with Lenny, whose father is Johnny Lombardi, another iconic figure in Toronto's history, especially well-known in the 70s and 80s for his CHIN FM picnics, which garnered, tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people would turn out to this event. So you're going to hear from Lenny Lombardi on this show, and my full interview with Lenny was put up on Tracks from Abroad's YouTube page, so you can take a look for that as well. But first on the episode, you are going to hear an Italian exchange student at UofT. His name is Tommaso. He's now back in Italy working on his PhD in Macerata. He also hosts a podcast called On Plein Air. It's all about painting, something he's very passionate about. And for my interview with Tommaso, we did a walking tour. It's very much on plein air, in fact. A walking tour with 2 lavalier microphones. We walked straight through Little Italy, down and back. We got ice cream. We recorded everything. We walked into Cafe Diplomatico. We saw the Johnny Lombardi statue, and we walked into a convenience store where we tried to speak to the store owner. And you heard that clip at the top of the show that we recorded as we walked through, and in fact, Tommaso gave me a translation. He said, "Ma'am, would you like to talk to us for a while? We're recording a radio episode. This is Jesse, a student from the University of Toronto." And as you heard, he said, "Maybe we could talk to you for 5 minutes?" Well, that was met with a swift no. And we were escorted out of the convenience store with our little radio setup. But it was really a unique interview that I did with Tommaso, walking right through the city of Toronto. You've got cars, and it's really an immersive experience. So I hope you enjoy this 60th broadcast of Tracks from Abroad. Again, we're all in the studio together today, this evening, eating international food and talking about the show. So thank you so much for listening to the broadcast. This is Tracks from Abroad visiting Little Italy, right here on CIUT 89.5. All right, ready? Hello and welcome to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. Today, we are with Tommaso here in Little Italy.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we are walking down the street. This is really interesting. We're basically immersed in the city, which is a great way to be. We're walking through Little Italy, and Tommaso, you're from Italy as well.
Yes, I am, actually. I come from a small city which is called Ancona. It's in the center of Italy, on the east coast, so basically opposite to Tuscany.
Okay.
But my region is really like Tuscany. It's just less traveled by tourists, so it makes it actually automatically better than Tuscany.
Yeah. I'm sure it's beautiful. You said you're on the water, right?
My city has this thing. Ancona is has a Greek etymology, and it means elbow because of its shape. And the elbow shape makes it possible to see the sunrise and the sunset on water because we are surrounded by it.
Interesting.
Really romantic.
Now, as we come up on this flag, this is a white, green, and red flag. It says, "Taste is back," the taste of Little Italy. Now, as we see, it says, "Tio la dolce vita." What does that mean?
La dolce vita. It's actually like an expression we use in Italy. I would translate it as the good life, maybe.
Okay.
So you have a glass of wine in front of the countryside, or you're on the beach. It's all really fancy, but at the same time it's really genuine in a way.
Yeah.
And that would be la dolce vita.
Is that your goal, is to live in Italy once you... Well, let's explain why you're even here in Toronto. How did you come to Toronto? And then we'll get into your future plans.
So I actually got in a plane and it was the wrong destination. I was going to Taranto, but it was Toronto.
What's
eventually.
Taranto? Where's that?
Taranto is a city in Italy.
Oh, funny.
No, just joking. I actually... I won a scholarship in my university to do research abroad. So I have contacted this professor. His name is Paolo Granata. Yeah, Media Studies Center. And that's exactly what I'll be studying and researching for my thesis. So I'm just here to do research and enjoying the city for a month.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but we are passing Cafe Diplomatico, which is one of the most well-known landmarks here. We have a little sign. Let's read about the history of Cafe Diplomatico.
So, opened in 1968 at the heart of College Street's Little Italy neighborhood, Café Diplomatico, originally Bar Diplomatico, was one of the first Italian-owned cafes in this part of Toronto.
And to the right, as the car honks, we have a whole bunch of folks, Italian flags.
Yeah.
Here it says, Café Diplomatico became popular with soccer and other sports fans in Toronto. I can attest to that. On our last show about Italy, I described coming through on my bicycle through this neighborhood as they had just won a soccer tournament. I think it was like Europa, I don't even remember the tournament.
European Championship,
It was like 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
looked just like that.
It's that one.
Except there were fireworks. People were shooting fireworks. People were freaking out.
The Euro Cup final went the distance with Italy, winning it in penalty kicks. Global's Morgan Campbell is in Little Italy tonight and has more on the emotional roller coaster for those watching the game. Morgan.
Mark, as you can tell, the whole atmosphere down here is absolutely electrifying. If you were hoping to come down here to Little Italy after the show, Mark, I doubt you will even get a seat.
Yeah, soccer is definitely like a gathering element in Italy. It creates a community. Everyone is excited about it.
And here's the interesting part of history. The Italian community celebrated in this photo on the history plaque World Cup wins here in 1892 and 2006. Italy's 1892 victory was against West Germany.
Yeah, it was.
That country does not exist anymore. Hey, what do you say we go check out the menu?
We should actually. Let's go check out. We have, bruschetta. Do you know what bruschetta is?
Bruschetta. We say bruschetta.
Oh
No,
my
I don't.
God.
I don't really know what it is.
It's literally just slices of bread that are toasted.
Yeah.
And then they are like, you can put literally anything on it, like from tomatoes, garlic, onion, or whatsoever. But the most basic one is just salt and oil. And it's like Italian's favorite actually. Like you get it before dinner as a sort of like, happy hour. You just have bruschetta. It's like one of the key elements in an Italian meal, definitely. Maybe.
We might just have to come back and get some prosciutto and bruschetta.
Yeah, we should.
You know what? I should have asked you earlier, Tommaso. Tell us about your radio work.
Oh, yeah, sure. I work in my university radio station. My university is Università di Macerata. And funniest thing about my radio station its name is Rum, like rum, like the liquor, because it's Radio Università Macerata, so Radio University Macerata. And I have a show which is called Amplifying, Art with Closed Eyes, and it's basically a radio show that talks about art, history of art, but mostly painters, so visual artists, and it sort of challenges the widespread idea that you can discuss art only on the basis of sight. So on Amplifying, we try to do the opposite thing. We try to just talk about it and try to like stimulate our imagination, trying to picture the paintings and the artworks that we're discussing, and we try to see actually beyond the canvas. So discussing like some fun facts, secrets, or like secrets about artists' lives. Yeah. I guess art's a strength point. Talking about art is like the Renaissance period, because in that moment Italy was literally the cultural center of like the whole Europe. Yes. And then it started like slowly switching towards France and Germany when we were like going towards like the 19th century, so Impressionism, and then we have got the avant-garde and so on. But still Italy, you know, like I guess that's one of the most beautiful things, is that it's so rich of like culture from so many different periods, and we have so many protagonists of art, so that's really
well said. Very cool. Well said. You are listening to Tracks from Abroad. We're going to take a music break and we'll be back with Tommaso on our walking tour.
Penso che un sogno così non ritorni mai più. Mi dipingevo le mani e la faccia di blu. Poi d'improvviso venivo dal vento rapito e incominciavo a volare nel cielo infinito. Volare, oh, cantare. Oh, oh, oh. Nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù. E volavo, volavo felice più in alto del sole ed ancora più su, mentre il mondo pian piano spariva lontano laggiù. Una musica dolce suonava soltanto per me. Volare, oh, cantare, oh, oh, oh. Nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù. Ma tutti i sogni nell'alba svaniscono perché quando tramonta la luna li porta con sé. Ma io continuo a sognare negli occhi tuoi belli, che sono blu come un cielo trapunto di stelle. Volare, oh, cantare, oh, nel blu degli occhi tuoi blu, felice di stare qua giù. E continuo a volare felice più in alto del sole ed ancora più su, mentre il mondo pian piano scompare negli occhi tuoi blu. La tua voce è una musica dolce che suona per me. Volare, oh, cantare, oh, 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 nel blu degli occhi tuoi blu, felice di stare qua giù. Nel blu degli occhi tuoi blu, felice di stare qua giù con te.
Welcome back to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. My name is Jesse McDougall. You're listening to our 60th episode broadcast focused on the Little Italy neighborhood in Toronto. And when I was doing a walking tour with our Italian exchange student Tommaso, we went to the Little Parquet where the Johnny Lombardi statue is located. And so I had Tom sort of read through what's written there and also translate some of the Italian for us. So we're going to continue with our walking tour on plein air. This is Tracks from Abroad.
It says, I hope we will all help preserve the vibrancy of multiculturalism in a city, a blend of traditions, languages, and beliefs. It is this diversity that makes the community strong. And then there's a signature of Johnny Lombardi. And I like the fact that Johnny Lombardi is next to a kid, actually, because it's not only about space, but it's also about time, like intergenerational contact between them.
Yeah. After looking at Johnny Lombardi's statue in the Little Parquet, we walked right into an Italian convenience store which carried lots of food items that Tom recognized from his home country, and we also saw some gossip magazines in Italian, so I asked Tom to talk about those too.
I'm recognizing some brands. Riso Scotti.
I've seen that before,
Barilla. These are taralli. They are really famous from Puglia, which is you remember the boot? The stiletto is yes. Puglia. That's where they come from. Oh, fortunately, I'm a little bit outside of these, let's say, mainstream gossip scene.
Sure.
But this is Belen Rodriguez. She's a famous showgirl in Italy. Okay. Stefano De Martino is a performer, and they've been together, but they split. This is Maria De Filippi. She's one of the most historical TV presenters. She has many shows. She's beloved from all Italy. A lot of people watch her show. Mm-hmm. Totti, Francesco Totti, is an Italian soccer player.
Okay.
Ilary Blasi is a model. They were together. They recently split after like several years
So
of being
what
together.
is this bold text? It must say something interesting.
Ora dicono, con Totti è finita per questo ragazzone tutto muscoli. It said like Ilary Blasi, hidden love. Now they say, with Totti, it's over.
Oh,
for
no.
this super muscular big guy. I do feel at home now. This has more like the dimension of a small Italian store, actually.
Yeah.
Jesse, the owners are Italian, actually.
Of course.
Signora, vuole parlare un po' con noi? Stiamo registrando una puntata radio su questo ragazzo, si chiama Jesse, è dell'Università di Toronto e ha un programma sugli studenti internazionali. Stiamo girando una puntata radio sull'Italia. 5 minuti? Oh, next time. La prossima volta. Grazie comunque. Ciao, grazie. I miss saying ciao, grazie.
After the convenience store, Tommaso and I walked across the street to go get some gelato, and he gave the strawberry gelato a pretty harsh rating.
And the server recommended that I get pistachio, which I followed her recommendation. I liked it. What did you get, Tommaso?
I got vanilla and strawberry. It has not the like true Italian taste,
Okay.
but that's something you have to like bear with. Strawberry, let's say 4 out of 10. It was a little candy tasting. It reminded me
We
of
want to be honest for the listeners. We're here, we're like public servants. We're serving the listeners.
Exactly.
Now, the reason I stopped you right here by this fruit is that we can talk about wine, because wine is very important in Italy.
Oh, yeah,
These are
it
grapes
is.
we're looking at here. They look pretty authentic.
But yeah, wine is definitely a central element of Italian culture.
Yeah.
And there's a village that I really love, and it's called Montepulciano. It's in Tuscany, and there is a small canteen, like wine canteen there,
Yeah.
with this old man that's known basically my family for years. And you go there, and he starts like pouring wine and likes to taste everything, and then
Cool.
you do a tour of the canteen.
Yeah.
And it's really hard not to get drunk because you have to keep up with him, and
Yeah.
he's like proposals.
He's probably got a, that's funny.
And you
He's
have
got
to
a high
keep-
tolerance.
Yeah, and you have to like keep listening to what he's saying. You don't have to get dizzy, and he doesn't care. Like, you know, the fun thing is that you're in the village, you know. So even if you are a kid, he will like give you a
Yes.
little bit of wine to
Yes.
make you taste it anyway.
Do you remember the first time that you tried wine?
Oh, I guess I don't, for this main reason that you just start so early.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like, it's a thing. You just take one small sip
Yeah.
every time your father has it on the table. You know, I guess the main element is just like one glass of wine at dinner. That's
Yeah.
the thing, you know.
Tommaso and I walked all the way back through Little Italy, the way that we came, towards UofT's campus, and all of a sudden he had a message for his professor who was mentoring him when he came to visit.
Paolo Granata, my supervisor,
Yes.
who I want to thank and like shout out
Yes.
to Professor Paolo Granata. He's one of the greatest professors I have ever met.
Wow.
And he's been actually making my experience so special.
Good.
He really did help in the whole experience, and he was really like such a person to look up to during these weeks.
Why don't we finish up this episode of Tracks from Abroad? We have finished the Little Italy walking tour with our little lavalier microphones. I hope to God that my microphone didn't crap out again. But Tommaso, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for having me. It was such an honor.
Se per caso cadesse il mondo io mi sposto un po' più in là. Sono un cuore vagabondo che di regole non ne ha. La mia vita è una roulette, i miei numeri tu li sai. Il mio corpo è una moquette dove tu ti addormenterai. Ma girando la mia terra io mi sono convinta che non c'è odio, non c'è guerra. Quando a letto l'amore c'è. Com'è bello far l'amore da Trieste in giù. Com'è bello far l'amore, io son pronta e tu. Tanti auguri a chi tanti amanti l'amore fa braccetto con la follia, ma per una che è già matta tutto questo che vuoi che sia, tante volte l'incoscienza è la strada della virtù, litigare, litigare per amarsi sempre di più, ma girando la mia terra io mi sono convinta che non c'è odio, non c'è guerra, quando a letto l'amore c'è. Com'è bello far l'amore da Trieste in giù, com'è bello far l'amore, io sono pronta e tu, tanti auguri a chi tanti amanti ha, tanti auguri in campagna ed in città, com'è bello far l'amore da Trieste in giù, l'importante è farlo sempre con chi hai voglia tu, e se ti lascia lo sai che si fa, trovi un altro più bello che problemi non ha, com'è bello far l'amore da Trieste in giù, com'è bello far l'amore, io son pronta e tu, tanti auguri a chi tanti amanti ha, tanti auguri in campagna ed in città, com'è bello far l'amore da Trieste in giù, l'importante è farlo sempre con chi hai voglia tu, e se ti lascia lo sai che si fa, trovi un altro più bello che problemi non ha, trovi un altro più bello che problemi non ha, trovi un altro più bello che problemi non ha.
Welcome back to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. My name is Jesse McDougall. It's the 60th broadcast of this show. We're focusing all of our efforts on Little Italy to learn about the Italian community here in Toronto. And going on concurrently to this broadcast is TFA's International Potluck at the CIUT main studios right here in Harthouse on UofT's campus. We've got lots of international dishes, and we've welcomed all of the past student guests of our show to come on, as well as any listeners who would like to. And we're just about to start the live music performance of El Sebo Folklore, the Argentine folk band that played on our show as well. We're now going to get into my interview with Lenny Lombardi. He's the president and CEO of CHIN Radio. It's a multicultural broadcaster here in Toronto, and he was kind enough to give his time and to speak with our radio show, talking about the history of this community and the contribution that his father, Johnny Lombardi, made to it. Johnny was a trumpet player. He was a record producer for Bravo Records, and if you go online to YouTube and watch the video that I made of this interview with Lenny Lombardi, you'll see Johnny Lombardi posing next to bikini-clad women and bears at the Canadian National Exhibition where they used to do bear wrestling. It's really a look into the past of what Toronto used to look like. But let's start out my interview with Lenny Lombardi right here on Tracks from Abroad. Today, again, is the 60th broadcast of the show. We're learning all about Little Italy.
Now's the time to leave your worries behind.
So I'm actually in my father's office. So many of these photographs are part of his collection that he collected over the years.
So first, Lenny, I would like to ask you about CHIN Radio today, about what sort of programming you do and what's your mission.
So CHIN Radio is as you know, is a multicultural broadcaster. So we broadcast in over 50 languages on 4 of our radio stations. We have 3 here in Toronto and 1 in Ottawa. And we also produce a lot of ethnic television programming for Rogers, Omni, and City TV. So we've pretty much been in the multicultural media business for going on over half a century now. And our job really is to inform, entertain our listeners in 50 languages. And we're a for-profit organization. We're not subsidized by the government. And our mandate is third language programming. So, let's say Cantonese, for example. Within that community, we are pledged to entertain everybody in that community, from teenage to seniors, right?
Sure.
So we're constantly modifying our programming to meet the needs of our listeners. So I'll let you know what our biggest markets are: sort of Cantonese, Mandarin, Punjabi, Hindi, many of the communities from South Asia, Latin, Spanish, but from South America primarily, Italian, of course,
Sure.
which is our oldest group. Portuguese is also in Ottawa. Arabic is our number one language group, followed by South Asian and Chinese. But we speak 50 languages, Polish to Bengali. So
I would love to talk about the founding of CHIN Radio in 1966. What did Toronto look like in that era, and what did CHIN Radio provide to their listeners back then?
Well, Toronto was a very different city in 66, as you can imagine. It was mass immigration primarily from Italy and Europe post-war. So Toronto was rapidly changing, and there was a real need for information in a third language, in a language that these newly arrived immigrants could understand. And in 66, or back in the early 60s, there were none of these services available, right, that are here today. I mean, and of course, with massive immigration comes, the stain of prejudice, of suspicion and concern. So it was a rough go for immigrants in those early days. I should say my father was born Canadian. He was born in Canada in 1915 and actually served in the Canadian Army during the Second World War. He had the benefit of both worlds. He was Canadian by birth, but also could understand the immigrant experience because his parents were immigrants who arrived at the turn of the century. After the war, he started a supermarket or a grocery store and catered largely to the Italian community because of the neighborhood that he established his business in, and recognized that radio was a wonderful vehicle to reach his customers, his community around him. And that's kind of how we started in radio. He sort of bought a half hour from Alan Waters on 1050 Chum, and at 7:00 at night, and that launched his interest in radio. In 1965, he teamed up with none other than Ted Rogers on a joint application for Radio 1540. Together, they won that license. And Ted Rogers did English language programming during the day, and my father did multicultural programming at night. And he and Ted were great friends. And when Ted found 680, he sold his shares to my dad for 1540, and my father then turned it into 100% multilingual. So he got to do what he really wanted to do, was multilingual broadcasting. So he was a very interesting guy because he was a musician, and so he was also like a jazz trumpet player, and he was the first trumpet in a big band. He had his own orchestra at the age of 15. Then he went to work for the Benny Palmer Orchestra, which was the Guy Lombardo of Ontario. If you know, Guy Lombardo was a big band leader back in his day. And so my dad was a very successful musician up until he enlisted in the Army. And so he had a real flair for show business. It just sort of came out, in his career as a musician. And then when he went to war, he and the Army, that taught him discipline. And as the Italian immigration in Toronto and in this particular neighborhood, Little Italy, started to grow, and in his travels to Italy, buying products to import for his grocery store, his supermarket, he met other impresarios and musicians there, and decided that, hey, why doesn't he try bringing an Italian artist of great reputation that everybody in Toronto would know, all the Italians would know, and try a concert. And he did it with an artist, and it was a huge success. And so that was another ingredient to his marketing skills. So you go into my dad's supermarket, he would cut you like a pound of cheese and some salami and sell you a couple of tickets to a concert, right? So the supermarket became very central to the Italian community because there was so much activity going on. And he eventually expanded into records as well. He had his own record label and he sold records. So Italians back then could get all of these cultural things from my father. And so he was really in touch with the needs of the community and what kind of really fed not only their stomachs, but their soul.
Can you tell me about what is special about Little Italy, given that you grew up there? Are there any barbershops or fruit markets that you remember from your childhood?
It's got, I say it's a village within a cosmopolitan city, but it's got the heart of the European. It's got the soul of a European city. And there's something about this neighborhood that is perpetual. You know, there's St. Francis Church, and to this day, during the Good Friday procession, you know, hundreds of thousands of Italians from all over the GTA come back to this neighborhood for that religious procession. And you know, there's that generation that comes back to the neighborhood and goes back to their childhood streets and recognizes the home that they were raised in, and it's very nostalgic. So there's that kind of a spirit that still lives in this neighborhood, even though it's very diverse culturally as well. And we continue to find ways in which we can celebrate the Italian culture here in our festivals on the street. So we have the Taste of Little Italy. We have Festa del Strada in Piazza Lombardi, which we just launched this year. We have the Cavalcade of Lights that we celebrate the Christmas with Christmas carols in Italian and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So we try to do that as tribute to the roots of the city.
You are listening to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. We're taking a music break as we are halfway through our interview with Lenny Lombardi. Today we're learning all about the history of Little Italy. We're going to be right back with you in a moment.
Cambia il cielo, cambia la musica dell'anima, ma tu resti qui con me. Tra lo stomaco e i pensieri più invisibili, e da lì non te ne andrai, ma la vita cambia idea e cambia le intenzioni e mai nessuno sa come fa quando una stella muore, che brucia ma non vuole, un bacio se ne va, l'universo se ne accorgerà quando una stella muore, fa male. Troppe notte sotto ai occhi porto lividi, ho imparato il modo mio, tra leccarmi le ferite più invisibili, perché è così che si fa. Cambia le intenzioni e mai nessuno sa come fa quando una stella muore,
CIUT, the sound of your city.
We consider this neighborhood, soccer central. The fans of the sport love to enjoy it in a neighborhood that loves it and respects it. And the connection to Italy is very strong, especially when Italy is a contender, in any of the matches. That's when things really come to light.
It's not a question of whether there will be a World Cup victory parade in Toronto. It's just a matter of determining the color of the victory flags. In what may be the most ethnically diverse city in the world, Toronto has soccer fans of every stripe, fans to cheer every team vying for the World Cup.
I think it's a way of multiple generations reconnecting with their cultural roots. I guess 14. If you look at 14 division, if you look at Spadina, Dufferin, the Lake to DuPont or St. Clair. If you look at those boundaries, 90%, I'd say 99% of the Italians that immigrated to Toronto in the late 50s and 60s settled in this area. And College Street was the main artery, the nerve central of this entire neighborhood. Everything happened on College Street. It hasn't changed all that much, right? The storefronts are still there. If you look at old photographs, you can actually recognize, where they were taken. So there's that kind of familiarity as well.
Today, Lenny, where is your favorite place to get Italian gelato or a coffee in Little Italy?
The most famous outlets, of course, for gelato is Sicilian ice cream, one of the longest standing ice cream shops, original ice cream shops, that was founded by the Gallipoli family. I got to hand it to the Mastrangelo family. The Dip is one of the most famous cafes in the city of Toronto. Because of their history, they've been part of this landscape for, over close to 60 years, maybe more now. I guess so many people who have come, like yourself, and enjoyed their stay and want to return, and lots of people that once upon a time lived in this neighborhood not too long ago, who are not of Italian extraction, but love the neighborhood and missed it, and still want to come back. So it's a special place, and it's well worth the visit.
Well, Lenny Lombardi of CHIN Radio, thank you very much for coming on to Tracks from Abroad and telling us about Little Italy.
My pleasure, Jesse. Thanks for including.
You are listening to Tracks from Abroad's 60th broadcast focused entirely on the Little Italy neighborhood here in Toronto, and a big thank you to our guests for coming onto the show. For Lenny Lombardi of CHIN Radio, what an important institution here in Toronto, very historically important, and I hope you listeners learned something about the neighborhood there today. And thank you very much to Tommaso. He's now all the way back in Italy doing his PhD, but thank you for sharing your cultural heritage with us and translating a few things too. You can send us your comments about this episode to tracksfromabroad@ciut.fm, but for now, we're going to play out the rest of this song.
Ciao for now, the time has come to part. I leave you with my heart. Ciao for now. Ciao for now. It means we'll meet again. I don't know where or when, but ciao for now. Under these Roman skies, when you look in my eyes, my heart skipped a beat or two. And before that was said, there's a word runs through my head. I love you, I love you. Ciao for now. Somewhere, sometime, somehow, we'll meet again, I vow. But ciao for now. Ciao for now, è stato tanto bello a Capri e Ravello. Ciao for now, ciao for now, ti prego amore mio, non dirmi mai addio, ma ciao for now. In my più blu, la carrozzella e tu. Non posso dimenticare tutto questo e te porto via con me nel cuore, amore. Ciao for now, ti amo e ti amerò, ti giuro che tornerò, ma ciao for now. From the skies, when you look in my eyes, my heart skip a bit or two. And before I would say this, a word into my head. I love you, ciao for now. Somewhere, sometime, somehow, we'll meet again, I vow. But ciao for now, never say goodbye. Ciao for now. Ciao for now.
Curated by the people, for the people. CIUT 89.5 FM is the sound of your city.
Hi everybody, this is Jesse McDougall of Tracks from Abroad, just checking in. We have finished our 2 interviews for the show, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we're currently doing a potluck, holding an international potluck right here at the station. We've got tons of people milling around, and we're just about to start our live show, which is with the band El Sebo Folklore, the Argentine folk band. So what I want to do for the next 10 minutes is play 2 tracks from an album called Bombers. It was produced by Pat DeSerio, who is a Montrealer, but he's an Italian-Canadian, and he was instrumental in making some really great disco tracks in the 70s and 80s. So we're going to let these songs play out, and because we have dozens of interesting students and listeners of CIUT and musicians milling about the studio right now, I'm going to leave the microphone on, more or less, and if anyone wants to come up and say something about Tracks from Abroad or about the importance of CIUT to our community, I'm going to let them do that. We're going to shy away from any seditious blasphemy, but most of the time it's me talking on the show. We're going to let the people, the listeners of this show, share what they think. If you want to share what you think, you can send us an email at tracksfromabroad@ciut.fm, and I encourage you to follow us on Instagram at tfa.radio. All right, thank you so much for listening to this 60th episode focused on the Little Italy neighborhood in Toronto. My name is Jesse McDougall. We're going to let these songs play out. Thanks very much for listening. I'll catch you in the next episode.
Come on and dance.
proudly student and listener-supported community radio. CIUT 89.5 FM, celebrating 35 years as the sound of your city.
Ich bin Hannah von Deutschland und du hörst im Moment zu Tracks from Abroad auf CIUT 89.5 FM.
Bonjour tout le monde, moi c'est Mathis et puis wap koute Tracks sorti à l'étranger.
வணக்கம் மக்களே, நான் உங்க மார்க்கஸ் பேசுறேன். நீங்கள் கேட்டுக்கொண்டிருப்பது Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM.
我是黄小丫，来自中国。你现在在听 Tracks from Abroad.
Tracks from Abroad.
Tracks from Abroad.
Tracks from Abroad 在 CIUT 89.5 FM.
Nama saya Zoe dan anda sedang mendengar Tracks from Abroad di stesen radio CIUT 89.5 FM.
من میلاد هستم از ایران و شما دارین به Tracks from Abroad از رادیو CIUT 89.5 FM گوش میدهید.
Where's you seen all here? I'm Shamil and you're listening to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody come on, get on the floor, get dancing. Everybody come on, get on the floor, get dancing. Everybody come on, get up on the floor, dancing. Everybody come on, get on the floor, get dancing.
Now's the time to leave your worries behind. Time is just right, dancing in the disco lights. I know you got a groove, I can tell by the way your body moves. Shake it to and fro.